On a quiet December night, in a tiny house at the edge of town, a 7-year-old boy named Lucas sat at the kitchen table with his tongue pressed between his teeth, writing the most important letter of his life. It wasn't a list of toys. It wasn't about video games or bikes or anything that came in a box. In shaky handwriting, he wrote, "Dear Santa, I don't want presents this year. I just want a dad for my mom. She cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. Please send someone who will stay." A few weeks later, that letter ended up in the hands of a man who didn't believe in Christmas miracles anymore, and the simple wish of one little boy would turn into the most unexpected gift 3 broken hearts could ever receive. This is the day everything changed. Before we dive into Lucas's letter and the stranger who found it, take a second to subscribe to this channel. Here, every story is a reminder that one moment, one decision, one letter can change an entire life. Now, let's go back to where it all started. Lucas lived alone with his mother, Emma, in a small rented house with peeling paint and a roof that always seemed to leak in the same place. From the outside, their life looked simple. On the inside, it was fragile, like a glass ornament that could crack with one wrong move. Emma worked double shifts at the diner in town. Most nights, she came home smelling like coffee, French fries, and exhaustion. There was an empty chair at the table that never moved. That had been Daniel's chair. Daniel was Lucas's dad, a kind man with big hands and a gentle laugh who used to lift Lucas up to touch the ceiling, as if he were showing him just how high he could go in life. 2 years ago, a drunk driver speeded through an intersection and didn't stop. Sirens screamed. Lights flashed. Hours later, Emma got the call that shattered everything. Since then, Christmas had become something Emma survived, not celebrated. She did her best for Lucas. They still baked cookies. They still hung lights around the window. She still wrapped a few small gifts for him, even if money was tight. But the joy, the easy, careless joy, was gone. Lucas noticed. He noticed the way her smile faded as soon as she thought he wasn't looking. He noticed how she lingered over the photo on the wall, Daniel in a blue flannel shirt, arms wrapped around both of them. And he noticed something else. She was tired, not just from work, from carrying everything alone. One night, as snow tapped gently against the window, Lucas lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He could hear his mom in the living room, talking quietly to the picture. "I'm doing my best, Danny," she whispered. "But some days I don't know if it's enough." Lucas's chest tightened. He'd heard other kids talk about their fathers at school, about dads teaching them to ride bikes, helping with homework, showing up at games. He missed his dad. He missed him so much it hurt. But lately, what hurt even more was seeing his mom trying to be both parents at once. He didn't want toys this year. He wanted help. He wanted someone to sit in the empty chair and make his mom laugh again. He wanted a father. And in a child's world, there was one person who could deliver anything: Santa. The next afternoon, while Emma was at work and the neighbor was keeping an eye on him from across the street, Lucas sat down with a piece of lined notebook paper. He'd written letters to Santa before, lists of action figures, toy cars, a robot dinosaur that walked and roared. This time, he stared at the blank page for a long time. How do you ask for a person? He gripped his pencil and began, "Dear Santa, my name is Lucas, and I am 7. I used to ask for toys, but I don't need them this year. My dad went to heaven 2 years ago." He paused. Tears blurred the lines on the paper, but he kept going. "My mom works so much, and she looks sad when she thinks I don't see. I try to be good and help her, but I can't fix it. So for Christmas, I just want one thing. Can you send my mom a good man, someone who is kind and funny and doesn't leave? He doesn't have to be my real dad. He just has to love my mom and maybe like Lego. I promise I'll share. Love, Lucas, P.S. If this is too hard, you can just give her a hug from you." He read it 3 times, heart pounding. This felt bigger than asking for a toy. This felt dangerous. What if Santa said no? What if Santa couldn't do it? Still, it was the only plan he had. He folded the letter carefully, slipped it into an envelope, and wrote in large letters, "To Santa, North Pole." He drew a little snowflake in the corner, just in case. That evening, when Emma came home, Lucas bounced at the door. "Mum, did we miss the last day to send letters to Santa?" She blinked, surprised. I don't think so," she said, rubbing her temples. "We can drop it in the mailbox tomorrow, okay?" Lucas clutched the envelope. "I already put the stamp," he said proudly. "I used the one with the bird." She smiled tiredly. "Okay, buddy," she said. "We'll send it." The next morning, on their way to school, they stopped at the big red mailbox outside the post office. "Go ahead," Emma said. "Make your wish." Lucas squeezed the envelope tight. "Please," he whispered, "please read this one." He stretched on his tiptoes and dropped it in. The letter clanked softly against the metal, disappearing into the darkness. He took his mother's hand. For the first time in a long time, he felt a little hopeful. He didn't know that, inside that same post office, someone else's life was stuck in a very different kind of winter. Ethan Miller used to love Christmas. He loved the lights. He loved the music. He loved the feeling that, for 1 month, people tried a little harder to be kind. But that was before his own marriage fell apart, before the divorce left him with an empty apartment and weekends that were far too quiet without his little girl running around, before he took a job at the post office, sorting mail instead of designing homes like he'd once dreamed. Now, Christmas was just more work, more packages, more rushed people, more fake cheer. He pushed heavy bins of mail down the hallway, his back aching, shoulders hunched. "Hey, Ethan!" called Mrs. Garcia, the elderly clerk with twinkling eyes and far too much energy for someone who'd been doing this job for 30 years. "You forgot the special bin." He frowned. "What special bin?" She pointed to a red plastic crate in the corner, overflowing with colorful envelopes. "Santa letters," she said. "We set them aside every year. Volunteers read some of them, in case there's something we can help with. Food, warm coats, toys for families who are struggling. Some just need a nice reply." Ethan sighed. "I've got 3 pallets of packages to sort," he replied. "I don't think I'm the guy." She cut him off with a sharp look. "You're exactly the guy," she said. "You're the only one who still looks like he might remember what it's like to be a kid." "That's very optimistic of you," he muttered. Still, something pulled him toward the crate. Bright crayons, stickers, little drawings of reindeers. Mrs. Garcia handed him a handful of letters. "Just read a few while you're on break," she said. "If any of them sound serious, bring them to me. We'll see what we can do." He didn't argue. Later, sitting alone in the break room with a lukewarm coffee, Ethan opened the first envelope. A child wanted a puppy. Another wanted their dad to come home from deployment. One simply wrote, "Please make my brother stop stealing my fries." He almost smiled at that one. Then he opened Lucas's letter. The handwriting was careful but imperfect, some letters tilting sideways. As he read, the room seemed to go quiet. "I don't want presents this year. I just want a dad for my mom." He swallowed. By the time he got to the line, "He doesn't have to be my real dad. He just has to love my mom and maybe like Lego." Something in his chest ached. This wasn't a shopping list. This was a child trying to fix something too big for him. He thought about his own daughter, Maddie, who lived in another city now, spending Christmases with her mother and a new stepfather. He thought about how powerless he'd felt when his marriage ended, how he'd wanted someone to swoop in and fix his family too. On the bottom corner of the letter, in tiny writing, was a return address. Ethan stared at it. "This is not your business," he told himself. He should take the letter to Mrs. Garcia. They'd maybe send a kind note, maybe a small gift. That was all. But as he folded the paper back up, one sentence from the letter stuck in his mind. "I try to be good and help her, but I can't fix it." He knew that feeling too well, and suddenly, Doing nothing felt wrong. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of his cramped apartment. He imagined a tired woman working long hours. He imagined a little boy waiting by the window, wondering if Santa had heard him. He'd spent months feeling useless, like his choices didn't matter anymore. But here was a letter physically asking for help, sitting on his kitchen table. The next day, he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He made a decision that scared him. He took his lunch break, grabbed Lucas's letter, and went to Mrs. Garcia's desk. "This one," he said carefully, "I think I can help with." She adjusted her glasses and read it, her expression softening. "Oh, honey," she murmured. "These are the ones that break my heart." "We have the address," Ethan said. "I could drop something off, maybe some gifts, groceries, just as, I don't know, Santa's helper." She smiled knowingly. "Or," she said gently, "you could drop off yourself." He bristled. "That's not what I meant." "I know," she said. "But sometimes the best thing we can give isn't stuff. It's time, conversation, a reminder that they're not alone." He hesitated. "It might be weird," he said. "A random guy showing up saying, 'Hey, your son wrote to Santa and I read it.'" "We can make it less weird," she replied. "Every year we organize a small charity project. Volunteers drop off baskets from Santa to families in need. You take one of those baskets, you bring it. You say you're with the post office program. That part will be true." She lowered her voice. "What you do after that is between you, them, and maybe someone up there who still believes in miracles." Ethan let out a breath. "Okay," he said. "I'll go." "Good," she said, patting his hand. "And shave. You look like a raccoon." On Christmas Eve afternoon, Emma was trying to keep everything from falling apart at the same time. The sink was full of dishes. There was flour on the counter from the cookies that stuck to the tray. Her hair was pulled into the kind of messy bun that said, "I lost this battle hours ago." Lucas sat at the small table, drawing a picture of Santa riding a skateboard. "You think he gets bored with just the sleigh?" Lucas asked. Emma smiled faintly. "Maybe he switches it up when Mrs. Claus isn't looking," she said. She checked the clock. The late shift at the diner loomed ahead. She hated working on Christmas Eve, but extra pay meant groceries next week, so she didn't have a choice. Then someone knocked on the door. 3 polite, hesitant taps. Emma frowned. They weren't expecting anyone. Her family lived far away. She had no time for salespeople. She wiped her hands on a towel, walked to the door and opened it. On the porch stood a man in his 30s, clean-shaven, hair damp from the snow that clung to his jacket. He was holding a large basket wrapped in clear plastic and a small red envelope. "Hi," he said quickly, as if he'd rehearsed the line 100 times. "I'm Ethan. I work at the post office. We're running a Christmas program and this is for you." Emma blinked. "For me?" "For your family," he corrected. "From Santa. And from some people who read letters and decided you deserved a good Christmas." Her stomach dropped. "Letters," she repeated. Ethan's eyes softened. "Your son wrote one," he said gently, "to Santa." Emma's face flushed hot. "Oh, God," she muttered. "What did he ask for?" "We're okay, I promise. We don't need charity." "It's not charity," Ethan said quietly. "It's kindness. And for the record, he didn't ask for toys." She hesitated, blocking the doorway. Behind her, Lucas leaned to the side to peek at the stranger. "Mum, who is it?" "This is Ethan," she said slowly. "From the post office." Ethan knelt slightly so he was closer to Lucas's height. "Hi, Lucas," he said. "Santa got your letter. He sent some things for you and your mom. I'm just the delivery guy." Lucas's eyes widened. He got it," he whispered. "You read it?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah," he said, "and it was one of the bravest letters I've ever seen." Emma's gaze flicked between them, confusion and embarrassment swirling. "What did you ask for?" she asked her son quietly. Lucas bit his lip. I didn't want you to know," he mumbled. Ethan held out the small red envelope. "I made a copy before we sent it to the big guy," he said, trying to keep his tone light. "This is yours, if you want to read it." Emma took it with trembling fingers, and for a few seconds, the only sound was the rustle of paper. As she read the words, her throat tightened. "I just want a dad for my mom." Tears blurred the rest. She hadn't realized how clearly Lucas saw her loneliness, how deeply he understood what was missing. When she finished, she folded the letter back up and pressed it to her chest. "Lucas," she whispered, "you didn't have to." "I know," he said, "but nobody was helping us. So I asked the boss." Ethan chuckled softly. "Smart kid," he said. Emma wiped her eyes, embarrassed. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "This is a lot. We're okay, really. Other families probably need this more." "There's enough to go around," Ethan replied. "We're not taking it from anyone else. And if it makes you feel better, consider it a thank you for how hard you work. Santa reads everything, you know." There was something so honest in his voice that it disarmed her. She stepped aside. "Come in," she said quietly. "Just for a minute." "It's freezing out there." He smiled, relief flickering across his face, and stepped inside. The basket went on the table. Pasta, sauce, cookies, hot chocolate, a grocery gift card, a couple of small wrapped toys, a warm scarf. Lucas practically vibrated with excitement. "This is awesome," he said. "Santa has really good taste." Emma laughed, in spite of herself. "Yeah," she said, "apparently he does." Ethan watched them, something warm tugging at his chest. It was just supposed to be a drop-off, but in that messy, cozy kitchen with its crooked Christmas lights, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Emma insisted on making him coffee as a thank you. "I really can't stay long," he protested. "I don't want to." "Please," she said, "it's the least I can do." And Lucas needs about 5 minutes to stop vibrating before he opens anything. He smiled and sat at the table while she moved around the small kitchen, apologizing for the mess. "So," she said, setting a chipped mug in front of him, "how many of those letters do you read?" "A lot," he replied. "Most of them are about toys. Some are funny, some are harder." "And mine was?" Lucas asked. "Yours was honest," Ethan said, "and very brave." Emma cleared her throat. "I'm sorry if it put you in a weird position," she said. "I didn't even know he'd written it." Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "If anything, I should thank you. That letter reminded me why any of this matters." He hesitated, then added quietly, "I went through a divorce last year. I have a daughter. I only see her sometimes now." Reading Lucas's words, it hit close to home. Emma's expression softened. "I'm sorry," she said. "That must be hard." "Yeah," he admitted. "Some days it feels like my family broke and I couldn't fix it, so helping someone else's Christmas feel a little less heavy, it helps me too." There it was, that strange, unexpected connection that appears when two people share the parts of their story they usually hide. Lucas listened, head tilted. "So you're kind of like me," he said, "but big." Ethan laughed. "Yeah," he said. "Something like that." Emma glanced at the clock and sighed. "I have to go to work soon," she said reluctantly. "Late shift at the diner. They always need extra hands on Christmas Eve." "You work tonight?" Ethan asked, surprised. "What about Christmas?" "We'll celebrate in the morning," she said, ruffling Lucas's hair. "Right, buddy." He nodded, but his eyes dimmed a little. Ethan hesitated. "What if," he said slowly, "I stop by the diner later?" "Just for coffee. I'm not doing anything, and the place where I usually sulk is getting boring." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You want to spend Christmas Eve at a half-empty diner?" He shrugged. "Could be worse." He smiled. Could be home alone with my thoughts. Those guys are bad company." She laughed. "Well," she said, "we could always use people who tip well." "Done," he replied. "I'll be your best customer." Lucas grinned. "Can I come too?" Emma shook her head. "Nice try," she said. "You're staying with Mrs. Parker next door. Someone has to be asleep when Santa stops by." Lucas made a face but didn't argue. As Ethan left, Lucas followed him to the door. "Hey, Ethan," he said. "Yeah, buddy?" "Thanks for reading my letter," Lucas said. "Even if Santa can't bring a dad, I'm glad you came." Ethan paused, moved more than he expected. "Lucas," he said gently, "sometimes the best gifts aren't what we asked for." The diner was half empty when Ethan walked in that night. A couple of truck drivers at the counter, an elderly man sipping coffee and staring out the window at the falling snow, a teenage girl scrolling her phone in a booth. Christmas music played softly from a tinny speaker. Emma wore a red apron and a tired smile, moving between tables with practiced efficiency. When she saw him, her eyes lit up just a little. "You actually came," she said, grabbing a menu. "I said I would," he replied. "I'm trying this new thing where I keep my word." She smirked. "Big experiment?" she asked. "Huge," he said. "Might change my life." He took a seat at the counter. They talked between coffee refills and orders, little pieces of their lives, shared in those small pockets of quiet. He learned that Emma used to study art before life got complicated. She learned that Ethan once wanted to design houses filled with big, noisy families. He told her about Maddie. She told him about Lucas. At one point, she caught him looking at the clock. "You can go, you know," she said. "You don't have to stay out of pity." "I'm not staying out of pity," he replied. "I'm staying because this is the first Christmas Eve in a while that doesn't feel completely empty." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "Same," she admitted. By closing time, the snow outside was thick. "Let me walk you home," Ethan offered, helping her lock the door. "It looks slippery, and if you fall and break an arm, who's going to make Lucas pancakes tomorrow?" She laughed. "Fine," she said. "But if you slip, I'm telling everyone at the post office." As they walked down the quiet street, their breaths puffing in white clouds, the world felt strangely peaceful. No traffic, no noise, just the crunch of snow under their boots. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said suddenly. "Sure. Why did you really come today?" she asked. "Most people would have dropped the basket and left. You stayed. You came to the diner. You walked me home. Why?" He thought for a moment. "Because," he said slowly, "for a long time I felt like life was something that kept happening to me. My marriage ending, moving here, taking the first job I could get. Reading Lucas's letter was the first time in a while I felt like I could step into someone's story and maybe make it better instead of just watching everything fall apart." He looked at her. "And because your son is brave," he added. He asked for help. "I've been trying to learn how to do that too." She smiled softly. "Maybe we can learn together," she said. They reached her front door. The house was dark except for the faint glow of the tree in the window. "Thank you," she said, turning to him, "for all of this, for showing up." "Thank you for letting me," he replied. They stood there for a moment, the kind of quiet that isn't awkward at all. "Want to come by tomorrow?" she asked suddenly. "For breakfast, I mean. Lucas will probably attack you with 1,000 questions, but he'd be happy, and I wouldn't mind not eating leftover fries over the sink." He smiled, something warm blooming in his chest. "I'd like that," he said. Christmas morning arrived with the sun reflecting off snow like a million tiny stars. Lucas woke up to the smell of something unfamiliar. Not just his mum's usual scrambled eggs, pancakes, lots of them. He bolted out of bed and ran to the kitchen. Emma stood at the stove, and beside her, wearing an apron that clearly didn't belong to him, was Ethan. "Merry Christmas," Ethan said, flipping a pancake. Lucas froze. "You came," he said, eyes wide. Of course, Ethan replied. I heard there was a kid here who needed someone to challenge him at Lego after breakfast. Lucas grinned. Mom, can he stay? He asked. Just for today? Emma and Ethan exchanged a quick glance. For today, Emma said. They opened presents, simple things, but filled with thought. Lucas got a new set of colored pencils and a second-hand Lego set that looked brand new. Emma got a sketchbook and a note from Ethan that said, for when you have time to remember what you love. And then there was one last envelope for Lucas. He opened it and gasped. Inside was a handwritten note on official-looking North Pole letterhead. Dear Lucas, thank you for your very special letter. Some wishes are bigger than toys, and they take more than one Christmas to answer. I can't replace your dad. No one can. But sometimes I can send people into your life who help carry the sadness and bring back the laughter. Keep being brave, keep loving your mom, and keep your heart open. Love, Santa. Lucas read it twice, then looked at Ethan, then at his mom. So, he said slowly, you're not exactly my dad. No, Ethan said gently. I'm not, but, Lucas continued, you're kind and you make Mom smile and you like Lego. Ethan nodded. All true. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. That's pretty close, he decided. I think Santa did a good job. Emma laughed, tears in her eyes. In that small kitchen, with pancakes on the table and paper wrapping scattered on the floor, something shifted. The empty chair at the table didn't feel quite so empty anymore. It would always belong to Daniel in a way. His memory was still there, in the stories they told, in the pictures on the wall, in the way Lucas scrunched his nose when he laughed, just like his dad. But now there was space, gentle, careful space, for someone new, not to replace, to add. As the day went on, they built Lego castles, burned a batch of cookies, and laughed more than they had in years. For Lucas, what Santa sent wasn't exactly what he'd asked for. It was something better. A friend for his mom. A grown-up who showed up. A reminder that love doesn't end when someone is gone. It just finds new paths to walk. That night, after Ethan had gone home and the house was quiet, Lucas lay in bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling. He whispered a small thank you into the darkness. Thanks, Santa, he said, for answering the hard way. And somewhere between the memory of his father and the hope of what could be, he fell asleep with a heart that felt just a little bit more whole. If this story touched you, remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do, like Lucas, is to ask for help, even when we're not sure anyone is listening. If you want more stories like this, subscribe to The Day Everything Changed. Leave a heart in the comments so we know you were here, and share this video with someone who still believes that one simple letter can change everything.